Hello again. So your first bikepacking race, well, that's pretty exciting, and that's actually my first message really, is to choose your first bikepacking race. You should choose something you're really excited by, and in that case you're more likely to commit to it, you're more likely to train hard, get all the preparation right, and because you'll be looking forward to it, and because you're really committed to it, you're more likely to finish it. So what I'm going to talk about is how to choose your first event, but also if you choose a big event, then how to prepare for that appropriately by making some stepping stones along the way, which might be to do some minor events or to do some minor practice events. So the most important thing really is to give yourself plenty of time. If you're choosing an event that's going to take you 2 or 3 weeks, like the transcontinental race might do, then you need to give yourself plenty of time to get fit enough for it and do some practices and make sure all your kit works and things, because once you set off and leave that start line, you're on your own for quite a considerable amount of time. And if you're choosing a shorter event, then you can give yourself less preparation time, or obviously depending on your current level of fitness, and just sort of build up to what you need. If you've chosen a big event, if that's what you're really excited by, and by a big event I mean something that's going to take you maybe more than 4 or 5 days to complete, then I think it's probably a good idea, if it's your first event, to do some practice rides, which by practice rides I mean get all your kit on your bike, get everything prepared and treat it as a race. So for instance, you do a couple of days with an overnight stop. I mean, they can be really short days initially, just to test all your kit and test all your systems, test everything, packing and all sorts of things work nicely, and make sure you can look after your bike properly. Well, the great thing nowadays though is that a lot of the events have, if the event's got a set route, then you can download the GPS file of the route and the checkpoints, and you can ride it at a time that suits you, a time that's most convenient for you. If you're in the UK, for example, a great example is the things like the racing collective events. So there's the GB Duro, England Duro, and those routes are fairly short, and you can download the GPS file and do the event at yourself at a time that's appropriate as part of your build-up. So for instance, if you had entered a race that's going to take you a week to complete, it might be a good idea to do a 2 or 3 day practice ride of some significant distance. You don't have to be riding the full distance every day. You just want to practice everything and practice what it feels like. You might want to do that maybe a month before the main event. Do that event, and then you'd be sort of recovering for a couple of weeks, do another sort of biggish week, and then rest until the event takes place. If you have to think about a bit more than just there are lots of challenges in taking part in a bikepacking event, and they vary depending on where it is, how long it's going to take you. There are physical aspects of it, which is basically how far it is, how much climbing is involved, and that'll determine how long it's going to take you and how fit you have to be, and how your ride schedule is going to be appropriate, what pace, what average speed you have to make to achieve your goal, which will be your time goal. It might be to finish before the finishers party, or it might be just to finish, which is a great way to approach your first event. And I think that's the best way to approach your first event, is have some sort of time guidelines in place, but don't worry too much about it. Just ride, enjoy it and learn, and have a great experience, learn about yourself, and enjoy the journey. So the factors that you need to consider are the weather. For instance, if you I mentioned Britain before, so I only mentioned Britain, well I'm from Britain, but it's quite windy because it's an island. It's quite windy, and also it's got a fairly predictable prevailing wind. So the wind would be a factor if you were doing a race in Britain. Or for instance, if you were doing a race, I now live in the French Pyrenees, where it can get quite hot. So if you're doing a race here, you might have fairly long periods of time, if you're going over the mountains, where you couldn't get more water, and it could be very hot. If you do a race in the summer, it gets it's 30 or sometimes approaching 40 degrees if you're in the lower parts of the Pyrenees around where I live, near Perpignan. And of course there are cultural factors. like languages. Are you good with languages? Are you good at communicating? Is there risk of other wild animals? I coached Jenny Graham, who was not last year, the year before, broke the round the world record, and she went through a period of time when she was going through Canada. She was terrified of being eaten by a bear. So these factors are, hopefully you wouldn't get attacked by a wild animal, but even if you don't get attacked, the thought is actually there, and that's tiring. So emotional drains are also tiring factors that you have to deal with. So if it's your first event, think about your resilience to the environment and different cultures, and how these might impact on your ride, and what factors you're going to have to overcome. That sort of leads into what ifs. Like I do this with all the athletes I work with, whether that be for a bikepacking event that might last several days, or even something like Karen Dart, the Paralympic time trial. We did it, which only took like 20 or 30 minutes. We went through a series of what ifs. What if you get a puncture? What can you do? What if somebody overtakes you, which is obviously a big thing in a time trial, and also in a bikepacking race if you're competing for things. So think about your what ifs, and then think about how you're going to deal with them, and then you can make a decision as to what preparation you need to do, and also whether any particular event is suitable to be your first bikepacking event. But as I say, go for something that's really exciting. It may take you a couple of years to get to it, and it may not end up being your first event. It might be that you do a few stepping stone events. But if you know that's really what you really want to do, then go for it and commit to it, and I'm sure you'll find it worthwhile in the end. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. I love to help people, whether that's formally or informally. Just get in touch, leave a comment, have a look at the website. There's loads of blogs on there. And if you like this video, click on the subscribe button, click on the bell for a reminder, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.